Everyone that is here, that are here, and welcome everyone that is online. We're going to sing a couple of songs this morning back to back. We're going to start up with Woke Up This Morning and then go into Use Me. creation. God is creator, makes all things new. And God needs us to shine its light as me, as you. So use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I can do. Show me all that I can do. Show me all that I can do. Yes, and so it is. Please be seated.
Good morning, Unity of Music City.
Morning.
Let's begin this portion of our service by taking a deep, centering breath. Today's centering statement is, inclusion is my expression of oneness. We are all connected. To have an inclusive mindset means that we ensure that everyone is invited to contribute, be seen, be heard, be valued, and be counted in a way that is safe and makes sense for them. When we are inclusive of others, we respect and appreciate the wealth of knowledge and experience that others are different from us bring to the table. As we embrace this inclusive mindset, it becomes easier to recognize the oneness that we share and to celebrate our differences. On the outside, our differences may be more prevalent, but on the inside, we are truly all the same. Oneness is a journey that begins with diversity, passes through inclusion, and lives in belonging. As we travel on our journey to oneness, let's strive to honor the diversity we see, make the effort to include everyone, and empower everyone to feel like they belong. Please repeat these affirmations after me. I take comfort in knowing that I am a part of something larger than myself. I take comfort in knowing that I am a part of something larger than myself. There is no separation from me and the rest of the world. There is no separation from me and the rest of the world. I love all life just as all life loves me. I love all life just as all life loves me. And so it is.
Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. In case you didn't know, you're at Unity of Music City. And we are a place of authentic transformation. Our desire is to offer a safe place for you to come and be yourself, no matter who you are, what you look like, and give you a safe space to be on your spiritual journey. That's why we exist. So welcome one and all. Do you have any announcements, Sherry?
Yes, we do. Okay, announcements. A new Wednesday evening class has begun from 6:30 to 8 p.m. The book, Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, can be purchased at Amazon. This class is facilitated by Deb Moore in workshop format with honest discussion, practical applications. To register, go to the church website's PayPal section to pay $60 in advance or $10 a week for the class, and use the note feature to indicate that your payment is for the class. Please include your email address. You can also email the church, unityofmusiccity@gmail.com, to register for this class if you have questions. Leadership Council meeting, Tuesday, May 17th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. Please see the weekly happenings or the website for Zoom information. A reminder, an email was sent to membership regarding a vote. Please check your email and respond by May 15th. An email was sent out last week for a member's vote giving the Executive Council authority to purchase property for Unity of Music City. Please see the email for more detailed information and to vote. We ask that you respond to this email within 10 days, Sunday, May 15th, so that prompt action can be taken on any real estate considerations. Thank you. The prayer chaplains, of course, are always available for your prayers. If you have a prayer concern that you would like the chaplains to be made aware of, you can email the prayer request to uofmcprayerrequest@gmail.com. There's also a prayer box in the back of the room for those of you who are present today. Drop your prayer concerns in that box, and any and all prayer requests are welcome. That's got it for today.
Okay. Well, happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day.
And for those of you who are not biological mothers, I honor the divine feminine in each of you. So when we sing our monthly mantra and we say the words, I hear babies cry, I watch them grow, I'm thinking about my puppy, right? Because I am the divine mother and father to my puppies that I've had in my lifetime. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. So let's all stand and sing it together. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them blue for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Good morning. This morning's affirmation, understanding my oneness with all creation, I am able to know myself more fully. All together now. Understanding my oneness with all creation, I am able to know myself more fully. One of the points of struggle for many people on a spiritual journey is letting go of the ego. We sometimes see this as losing all the specific elements of our personality that make us unique. And though we may know on some level that releasing the ego is necessary to spiritual evolution, we still fight against it. As we begin to recognize that this struggle is really the ego fighting itself, we learn that letting go is never a loss and always a gain. The ego wants us to remain in the delusion that we are separate from each other and all creation. The more we practice oneness, sit in oneness, and meditate on oneness, the more we know our true self. I practice a spirituality of unity because it is understanding of my oneness with all creation that I am able to know myself, my highest self, more fully.
So let's take a moment to just get still. Wherever you are right now, whether you're in this room with us here or you're watching from home, let's just take a moment to intentionally still ourselves. God is the love that heals all creation. And that is why it's such a wonderful world. As we sit in that energy, in the stillness, I want you to envision the essence of you extending out through your feet, the bottom of your feet, into the earth, into that substance and that energy that has supported you your entire life. Like tree roots, your energy extends down into the earth, and it spreads and it spreads, and then it reaches the energy of someone else. And when you connect to that energy, when you encounter that other, you immediately recognize that you are the same. That the connection between you is not creating something new. It is just synergizing the energy of the one. And that essence of you that reaches down like roots into the energy of the earth and it spreads out, it is connected to every other living being. Every other energy of life on this planet. And now I want you to envision the energy of you extending up beyond your head, out of the top of your head, reaching far, far up into the sky, into the universe, into the stars. And as it expands and reaches out, you encounter the expansion of another. And you immediately connect. For you are like magnets pulling together, reaching for each other, needing each other. And the energy that you send out through your head joins with others, and it circles back down through them into the earth, and it comes up through your feet. And you are connected in a never-ending, infinite, circular flow of energy. You are one with everything. Feel that flow of energy as we sit together for a moment in the silence. In the silence. God is the love that heals all creation. And every time we remember that, we become the love that heals all creation. We send that out through the soles of our feet and out through the top of our head. We send it out into the universe and down into the earth. We send it to everyone we are connected to, knowingly and unknowingly. We send out the love that heals all creation. We are the love that heals all creation. And we make the wonderful, wonderful world that we share.
Oh, Mother God, flowing through be.
All right. Happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Yes.
So good to see you mothers out there. All of the biological mothers and the spiritual mothers and the feminine mothers and the masculine mothers and all of those people who nurture in any kind of way. Crystal is the one person who has 2 of her children with her here today. Woo! So you are the super mother today. But I know there are other people here who also have children, and what a special, special relationship that is. It's perfect that on Mother's Day, that we're talking about inclusion. Because really the essence of mother energy is mother hen energy, right? The essence of mother energy is come on in. Come on and sit down. We got plenty, right? Oh, that's all right. We'll make another seat at the table. That's mother energy. Now, that doesn't mean that every mother does that, but it is mother energy. That is the energy of motherhood. So we have been busy talking about the 7 belief statements that we created as a congregation. And so both the folks who are here today and the folks watching online, I want to make sure and say hello to you. Let me see. It might be maybe Karen from Clarksville, maybe Hazel. I know Dave and Valerie might be watching today online. Maybe Russ and Marianne. I don't know who else. Maybe I'm going to forget somebody, but that's all right. But if I forgot you, tell me and call me out on it. But it's great to have you here. And today we're going to be talking about the third one of these belief statements. So we believe, I don't know how that got there at the top. But that's all right. It's okay. I'm going to tell you what it says there, underneath there. Trust me. Just trust me. It says that a direct relationship with God is available to all, and that God is known by many, many names. And the second one, you're going to make me remember this. There we go. The second one that we talked about last week is love, peace, and joy are our highest spiritual principles. And there they all are. Next week, we're going to be talking about intuition as a guide to our spiritual understanding. But this week, we're focused on this. The third belief statement of Unity of Music City. We believe that inclusion is our expression of oneness, and we are all connected. This inclusion is really important, and we're going to get to that in a moment. But for a moment, I want to talk about this idea of oneness and this idea of interconnectivity that we have with all of creation. This is one of the places where spirituality and psychology and science and philosophy all kind of meet together, right? We can find wisdom about oneness from a lot of different places. We can go to the wisdom of Native American philosophy. Peace will come to the hearts of men when they realize their oneness with the universe. It is everywhere. We all want peace, right? We're all potentially candidates for Miss America. We just want world peace. We just want world peace. And Black Elk tells us that the way that we get to that peace is we realize that that person that I'm in conflict with, I am one with. That person that I am currently engaged in something other than peace with, I am one with. Now, Black Elk knew this well. He was a medicine man, a holy man for the Oglala Lakota people. He was a second cousin to Crazy Horse. He fought at the Battle of Little Bighorn. He survived the massacre of Wounded Knee. He had known conflict. He had known war. He had seen his people being decimated. And through that, he was able to say, if we want peace, this is the only way it comes. It doesn't come through us winning the war. It comes through us understanding that we are connected with the people we are at war with. We can go to the Christian religion, the Christian tradition. And I don't know, all of these are going to be like this, unfortunately, Crystal. I'm not sure, but I'm going to try to fill this space here while she's fixing that for us. So a rabbi and a priest walk into a bar. The God who existed before any religion counts on you to make the oneness of the human family known and celebrated. Desmond Tutu, of course, was the African Anglican Archbishop of South Africa. He only died in this past December, right? He was a man who had won a Nobel Prize in his work as an anti-apartheid activist. I love that. I love when I hear people talking about peace and oneness who are known for the fact that they stood up as an activist. And they said, those people displaying any energy other than oneness, I'm going to stand up and call you out on that. Because apartheid was the South African system of segregation, racial segregation, and racial discrimination. He stood up against that. He won a Nobel Prize for that. He became very famously, had a friendship with the Dalai Lama through the latter years of his life that was always kind of, I don't know, the word I think of with the both of them is just joy. Every picture I see of the two of them together, they're like just laughing their heads off. Desmond Tutu also said this, because he talk about a model for oneness. He said, if God, as they say, is homophobic, I wouldn't worship that God. The Anglican Archbishop, if God is homophobic, that's not my God. I don't worship that God. That's oneness. That is a commitment to oneness that is thorough and absolute. Gandhi said, is there a way to just apply that to all of them, perhaps? I don't know. All right. That's all right. We can, as long as they show, then we can try to do that. The final goal of all religions is to realize the essential oneness. The final goal of all religions is to realize the essential oneness. Now, you know who Gandhi is, right? Gandhi is the Indian lawyer who took a stand for Indian independence. He stood up against British colonialism. He said this system keeps people separate. He stood up against the Indian caste system. He recognized that all people are one. He followed a path of nonviolent resistance, and he led this campaign for India's independence without ever picking up a gun or firing a bullet, right? And the final goal of all religions is to realize this essential oneness. So this next guy that I want to show you, I want to actually show you his picture, because the other guys you probably kind of can sort of picture in your mind, but also I want to show you this picture because look how cool he is on the right. Right? That is such a cool, he looks like someone out of Will Smith's Wild Wild West or something like that. That picture is taken in the 1860s in Brazil. This is William James. He's the father of American psychology. He was the first person to teach a psychology course in the United States at a university. His brother is Henry James, who was considered one of the greatest novelists in the English language. The James family was very well known in the 19th century. There he is, of course, William James on the left, as the old academic that he became, not the cool young dude on the right. And in the middle, that's a picture of him at a seance, because he also wrote a great deal on spiritualism and had a lot to say about the psychic world. William James, as a psychologist, perhaps has my very favorite quote of oneness. He said, "We are like islands in the sea, separate on the surface, but connected in the deep." Whew, I love that, connected in the deep. Makes me think of Adele, like rolling in the deep kind of thing, right? Connected in the deep. We may seem like we're different and disconnected, but we are all one. So Speaking of psychology, there were a couple of psychologists who created a study about the psychological effects of believing in oneness. Their names are Kate Diebels and Mark Leary, and these studies were reported in Scientific American in an article by Scott Barry Kaufman. And this is what they wanted to find out. They just wanted to find out what psychological impact is there on a human being who believes in oneness. And so they created this oneness scale, and I'm going to need that one fixed too, please, because I know, well, maybe not. Yep, I am. Yep, I am. We will figure out before next week, because when I get in the flow, I want to keep going. What happened with the transition of power there? All right. Belief in oneness scale. So here are the things that they came up with, these 6 statements, right? These 6 statements were, first, beyond surface appearances, everything is fundamentally one. And people had like a Likert scale, like from 1 to 5. How much do you agree with this statement? And a lot of these statements sound the same, but they're in essence different. Although many seemingly separate things exist, they are all part of the same whole. How much do you agree with that? At the most basic level of reality, everything is one. The separation among individual things is an illusion. In reality, everything is one. Everything is composed of the same basic substance, whether one thinks of it as spirit, consciousness, quantum processes, or whatever. And finally, the same basic essence permeates everything that exists. Those were the 6 statements that they asked people to identify just how much they agreed with these. And here's what they discovered. They found that the people who scored highest on the oneness scale had certain characteristics. First, they were more connected to distant people and the natural world. Now, they weren't necessarily more connected to the people close to us, because you don't have to believe in oneness to love the people you love. Believing in oneness or not believing in oneness doesn't probably change how you feel about your partner or your family or your children or your mother or anybody close to you. But believing in oneness gives you the ability to have compassion for people on the far side of the world, to really care about children in Africa, the poor in India, right? The Uyghur minority in Western China, that you really begin to care about immigrants, people who are struggling, and you begin to care about the natural world, because even though it's not maybe in your circle of influence, it matters to you that, you know, buffalo should have a resurgence, or that animals should be able to move about on their natural patterns of, what do you call that? Not hibernation. The migration. Thank you very much. Migration. I'm talking about immigrants, and I couldn't even think of migration for animals. They are more related to mystical experiences, but not necessarily to God. That these feelings of oneness are often attached to someone having a mystical experience where they felt that oneness. But they rarely make any mention of God in that. That people who scored higher seemed to have a universal concern for people's welfare and a greater sense of compassion overall, because they recognize that they're connected to these people who are suffering. They recognize a common humanity with common problems and common imperfections, rather than, oh, well, you know what, the United States gets this right and Pakistan gets this wrong. It's just all people who are making the same kind of mistakes, right? Who have the same kind of temptations to abuse power, who have the same kind of, just people, right? And they're more likely to identify with all humanity rather than with an ideology or with splinter identities. So people who believe in oneness are not likely to step up and say, oh, well, you know what, I am a fill in the blank. Because they don't resonate so much with those little identities. They don't have to tell you that they're a Baptist or a Catholic or a unity person. They don't have to tell you whatever. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. I don't identify with those identities nearly as much as I identify with all of humanity, right? So, this next person, as we shift over into science, You don't need his picture either, but he's cool too. So I wanted to show his picture because there's a show, you can watch it on Hulu, it's called Genius. And in this show, they'll spend a whole season on one person, and the very first season was on Einstein, the whole, like, 10 episodes. I started watching it again the other night when Nikki was gone somewhere. I don't know where she was. And I started watching that. I don't know where she was. She never tells me where she is. She's just gone, so no, I'm kidding. Sashay away. So, yes. So I started watching it again. I'd watched it all before. It's fantastic. You should watch it. Not only that, but it shows, it's very eerie how much Germany in the 1920s and 1930s feels a whole lot like the United States in the 2020s and hopefully not the 2030s, but at any rate. So Einstein is this German theoretical physicist. He gave us the theory of relativity. He worked in quantum mechanics. He won the Nobel Prize for this work. He ended up having to flee Germany and flee the Nazis because he was Jewish. He was a German Jewish man, and he was on the list of people to be killed. And so he fled and he came to the United States and he worked at Princeton University and he grew old there and he became kind of the sage of Princeton University. And he would get a lot of letters from people asking him just questions in general. One of the reasons why, by the way, that he fled Germany was because his belief in oneness automatically caused him to not be a big believer in nationalism. Because nationalism is a separator. And he, as a matter of fact, as a young man, he renounced his German citizenship. For a while, he was a citizen of no country, right? So this rabbi wrote him a letter, and he wanted to know how to explain to his 14-year-old daughter an issue surrounding death. And in that letter, Einstein said this: a human being is a part of the whole, called by us universe. A part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole nature in its beauty. Nobody is able to achieve this completely, but the striving for such achievement is, in itself, a part of the liberation and a foundation for inner security. That's like mic drop stuff. He's been dead for 70 years, and he's still dropping mics around there, right? Incredible. Nobody is able to achieve this completely, and I want to spend a moment talking about that idea. We love the idea of oneness, and yet we live in a world of division and separateness, and we're constantly trying to figure out how we do this. Have you ever said, I have, maybe you have too, have you ever said this statement? I am tolerant of everything except intolerance. Have you ever thought that? Right? Well, you're not alone, because there's a philosopher named Karl Popper who came up with something that is, who bought an island and he built. There is a philosopher named Karl Popper. He's a German philosopher from the 20th century. He created and identified something called the paradox of tolerance. And what he said is, in order to maintain a tolerant society, the society must be intolerant of intolerance. In other words, if a so-called tolerant society permits the existence of intolerant philosophies, it is no longer tolerant. Right? So we want to be tolerant, but if we're 100% tolerant and we tolerate the people who are intolerant, then we have become intolerant because we've allowed intolerance to take root. And we've allowed those people who needed us to demonstrate our tolerance to them to once again feel threatened and feel marginalized, right? So when we talk about inclusion, who do we mean? What do we mean when we're talking about inclusion? Generally speaking, this is who we're talking about. We're talking about the marginalized, those who have been discriminated against. We're talking about the LGBTQ plus community. We're talking about people other than whiteness in race and ethnicity. We're talking about the differently abled. We're talking about women, right? Now, there are two kinds of people who aren't on this list. One are the people who don't need to be, because they've always been included. So, yay, that's a kind of privilege. In our society, in Western culture, straight white maleness is the place of privilege. That's not an indictment against straight white men. And straight white men who understand this don't feel it as an indictment, right? They understand that the evidence of this is 5,000 years of privilege, right? So they should be grateful that they don't have to be included on this list. The other kind of person who is not on this list are the excluders. Now, those are two different groups, because sometimes straight white men are excluders, and I have also known racist gay people. And I have also known homophobic black people. So those people also are not on this. Those are the excluders. The inclusion list includes the people who need to be sent the message, you are okay, come on in. The inclusion list includes the people who have not always had that message, and they need that message sent to them. So I want to look at one of them, that differently abled section there. In higher education, I'm going to get to Jesus in a minute, by the way, for those of you waiting for some spirituality. For the differently abled, in higher education, we talk about this all the time. Frank liked that right there. We talk about accommodation versus accessibility in higher education. And the difference between those things is accommodation is when I make an individual shift in the way I do business because you need something different from me. This one individual needs something different. Accessibility is, let me just shift the way I do business so that everybody, they don't even have to tell me that they need it. It's just automatically set up that way. And both of these still have a place. Accommodation still has a place in higher education. Accommodation is reactive. You tell me that you need some extra help, I will give it to you. Whereas accessibility is proactive. I'm not even going to find out if you need help opening the door. I'm going to put electric opening doors at the beginning of our buildings, at the front entrance of our buildings. Right? I'm going to make sure that you don't even have to ask somebody to help you get in the building. Accommodation requires a person to come out. They have to identify themselves. I'll get accommodation letters at my job where a student has identified with our accessibility office that they have maybe ADD, and their accommodation is that they're allowed time and a half on a test. Well, I address that by being accessible. All students have all the time they need on tests in my class. So I've just answered the accommodation with accessibility. But this requires a person to come out, whereas accessibility maintains privacy. I have a perfect example of this. We used this at a conference at Vol State. Have you ever seen someone who's supposed to speak at a conference and someone hands them a microphone and they kind of are doing this like this and they're acting like it's got poison on it somehow? And they're like, I don't know how to handle this. And then they say, y'all can hear me, right? Y'all can hear me? I don't need this, right? The problem is that there's someone who's sitting in the back third of the room who might have a little bit difficulty hearing. And the room is cavernous and it's echoey and the voice sounds weird. And now you've forced that person to have to say, I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble hearing you. Accessibility is just use the mic. Just use the mic. Make sure that they don't have to figure that out. You figured it out for them. Accommodation is helpful for individuals. You've told me your individual need. I've answered it. Accessibility benefits everyone. In my classroom, based on rules of ADA compliance, if I show a video, I'm supposed to have the captions. Because if someone is hearing impaired, They can read the captions. But guess who else that helps? Students who are learning English as a second language benefit greatly from captions, right? Every single student who has any kind of attention issue benefits from captions. Guess who else? Everybody. Everybody's retention and it goes up when there's captions. That's accessibility. Accommodation is measured. We have to figure out what the problem is and respond to it exactly the way that problem needs. Accessibility comes from the heart. Now let's think about this in terms of spirituality. Can we apply this framework to religion versus spirituality? Religion being reactive and motivated by a fear of not doing right. There's a certain way we have to act. Whereas spirituality is proactive and motivated by a desire to expand in consciousness. Religion requires a person to act in a certain way. That one person is acting not quite right. We'd better call them out. I remember as a kid, my dad, the preacher, talking about, you know what, I'm going to have to sit down and have a talk with them about how their kids are acting. Like it, yeah, right? But spirituality maintains a spiritual autonomy. Every person in this room, every person watching has the ability to follow their own path as their intuition guides them. Religion is helpful for the right people. If you're in the right person doing the right thing in the right way, it's going to help you a lot. Because I'm an insurance agent, and I'm going to the right church and acting the right way with the right people, and guess how many clients I just got at that church, right? There's all kinds of networking and benefits and things that happen, but spirituality just benefits all people. There's nobody with extra special benefits. Everyone is benefited. Religion is measured by rules and expectations, whereas spirituality comes from the heart. This is the framework of a spirituality of unity, a spirituality of oneness. On May 1st, how many days ago is that? 8 days? 7 days ago. On May 1st, the Global Methodist Church officially split from the United Methodist Church. And they split over the issue of whether or not, they split over the issue of inclusion. They split over the issue of whether or not gay people should be allowed to fully participate in their religion, right? And so the conservative Methodist, who did not want to include, they split off and became the Global Methodist. They are just another in a big handful of denominations and religions that have dealt with this. The Episcopalians and the Lutherans and the Presbyterians have all dealt with this question. Less controversially, because they're naturally more progressive denominations, the United Church of Christ and the Quakers and the Unitarians have all very easily dealt with that question. Some of the mainline denominations have deferred to local congregations like the Progressive National Baptist Convention. That is the convention that Dr. Martin Luther King was affiliated with. And the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. They've said, let's let the local congregations make this decision. Now, I know that some people will sit here and say, well, now let's be a little bit respectful. Some people just don't believe that, and they want to go into this. If you have to explain your spirituality in a very long PowerPoint with a lot of, like a flow chart, it might be too complicated. But if you're able to just say, it's just inclusion. Our religion is inclusion. Our spirit is love. Well, a Methodist minister in Texas, Reverend Eston Williams, said this: at the end of the day, I'd rather be excluded for who I include than included for who I exclude. And that's the heart of it right there. And this man just retired recently from the Ailey United Methodist Church in, I think it's Seven Springs, Texas. It's a little bitty rural, out in the country church. And they, as a little rural country congregation, talked through this issue and said, this is where we're going to stand. We're going to stand in inclusion. Practicing spirituality like this means that you practice a spirituality that says, suffer the little children to come unto me. Practicing a spirituality like this says that you practice one that says that I will not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. That's what inclusion does. Inclusion benefits all, because I don't even know the blessing that the person I'm including is going to bring to me, right? I was looking for someone in need. I was Googling for a picture of someone who was being fed, who was hungry. And what I found were a lot of pictures of little children, usually brown and black children in far-off countries, being fed by a white person, the white savior who's come to feed people. It's all lovely. There's nothing wrong with that at all, except that everybody can feed children. We all feel our heartstrings plucked when we're talking about the children. But this picture, I'm just going to flat out say it. I don't know about you, but I can almost smell that picture. If you've ever been around someone who is unhoused and who does not have access to a regular shower, right? It's rough around the edges. It's a little bit difficult sometimes. Where does our inclusion go? Jesus talked about this. He talked about that during this week between Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday when he was doing all of this teaching. And here's what he said. I'm reading this from the Message, so some of the language will be a little different, but I prefer this here. This is Jesus talking. When he finally arrives, blazing in beauty and all his angels with him, the Son of Man will take his place on the glorious throne, and then all the nations will be arranged before him, and he will sort the people out, much as a shepherd sorts out sheep and goats, putting sheep to his right and goats to his left. Now, we don't like this Judgment Day picture, but just hang with me for a moment. Hang with me. What he's saying here is this is the way the energy of love sorts people out. This is the paradox of inclusion, the paradox of tolerance. Right? If I'm going to include everyone, then I also have to make sure that those people who would exclude don't get a foothold. Because I am protecting the ones who need to be included. Does that make sense? The sheep and the goats. So in our modern terminology, the sheep are bad, right? They're sheeple. They'll follow people everywhere. And goats are the greatest of all time. But think back before all of that happened. Think back when sheep were good, goats were bad, right? So the Son of Man is going to separate the people out, and then the king will say to those on his right, the sheep, enter, you are blessed by my Father. Take what's coming to you in this kingdom. Take what's coming to you in this kingdom. It's been ready for you since the world's foundation. And here's why. Here's why. This is what gets you heaven. Heaven as the energy here on earth, right? Not heaven as the prize for Judgment Day. Yeah, I won Judgment Day. Yay, I get to go to heaven. Heaven as the energy here on earth. Here's how you get it. Jesus says, here's why I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was homeless and you gave me a room. I was shivering and you gave me clothes. I was sick and you stopped to visit. I was in prison and you came to me. And then those sheep are going to say, Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry and feed you, thirsty and give you a drink? And when did we ever see you sick or in prison and come to you? And then the Master will say, I'm telling you the solemn truth. Whatever you did, whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, that was me. You did it to me. I love the change in language there. As many of you know, in the King James Version or the NIV version is whatever you do to the least of these. And that sets up a hierarchy of people, like this person is a least than and this person is a better than. And the Message changes it and says whenever you do, it takes it away from them. It's not an inherent lesser than quality of them. It's the way they've been treated by others. Whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, you did it to me. And then, here's what's really important. Because a lot of people who talk about that part of the Bible stop right there and they go, there you go. Jesus did a mic drop. Have a nice day. But Jesus' story doesn't end there because he turns around and does the converse. And he says, then he will turn to the goats, the ones on his left, and say, get out, worthless goats. I love that. I love that. Get out, worthless goats. You're good for nothing. That's going to be my motto. Get out, worthless goats. I might need a t-shirt. You're good for nothing. And why? I'll tell you why. Because I was hungry and you gave me no food. I was thirsty and you gave me no drink. I was homeless and you gave me no bed. I was shivering and you gave me no clothes, sick and in prison, and you never visited. And then these goats, this is Jesus talking the whole time, right? Jesus is saying this whole story. He says, and then these goats are going to say, Master, what are you talking about? We have always followed around, kissed up to you, done what you asked, made sure that when you were watching, we were acting right. What are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry or thirsty or homeless? Because we would have fed you, Master. We would have given you something to drink. When did we ever see you hungry or thirsty or homeless or shivering or sick or in prison and didn't help you? And he will answer them, I'm telling you the solemn truth. Whenever you failed to do one of these things to someone who was being overlooked or ignored, that was me. You failed to do it to me. That's the inclusion that I want to practice. I will fail. Like Einstein says, none of us will get it perfect. None of us will do it right. But at the end of the day, I'm going to err on the side of inclusion. I would rather be excluded for who I include than included for who I exclude. And that means opening our arms wide. And it also means that we understand the inclusion paradox. And we make sure that those people that we've welcomed in and included, that we say, and you are safe here. We will continue to diligently make you safe here. That's the spirit of unity. And that is why we exist. Namaste.
Wow. Would any one of you like to try to follow that? Because I would welcome you to. I guess the best way to follow that is to say thank you. And let's all be in gratitude together for having this opportunity to come and hear this message, have this opportunity to come and be together as a spiritual community, and have the great blessing to be able to contribute of our time, talents, and treasures to this spiritual community. And as you can see here on the screen, the different ways to give. If you want to take a picture of that QR code, I see some of us got their phones out there. PayPal, Red Bucket, or an automatic bank draft is a way to do it regularly. You can also sign up for Amazon Smile for Unity of Music City or the Kroger Rewards cards. So please do all of those if you can. And let's say our abundance blessing. So let's say it together. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I choose to give. And we are grateful. So let's all sing I am grateful together. I am grateful for another day of living. Grateful for a new chance to forgive. I'm grateful to receive life's many blessings. And I'm grateful for the love I have to give. I am grateful for another day of living. I'm grateful for a new chance to forgive. I'm grateful to receive life's many blessings. let's stand up, and Sherry, will you lead us in the prayer for protection?
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well. Life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well. Life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. We are truly blessed. We are truly blessed. And we are. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. We'll see you next week. Goodbye, everybody online.